In this presentation, I'm going to go over in more detail what a traffic impact analysis is and how the traffic impact analysis for Mead Works was done and what was included in it. Some previous iterations of the report refer to the project as Greenstone Kaiser, and this TIA was done to support a change of conditions as relates to traffic that run with the property under discussion, which is shown here in red. It's been owned by the Kaiser Corporation for many years and was originally bought as buffer property from their Mead site. It's been in use for agricultural purposes, but other than the Costco store, no other development has happened on the site, even though it's been proposed for development for some time. At this particular time, Greenstone is planning to buy the property that's shown in the colored diagram, and they will be developing 1,440 units of residential housing on their site. This residential property will be developed as single-family housing, multifamily housing, and retirement housing, both attached and detached. There will be open areas, bike lanes, pedestrian pathways, and a small amount of retail directed at the residents in this area. The land that's shown in the sepia tones is either the existing Costco or will remain in the successor Kaiser Corporation's hands. They are planning to develop that into 1,195,000 square feet of building area as allowed under the mixed use zoning on the site. This could be anything from a shopping center to a hospital to motels to a home improvement superstore. So a traffic impact analysis contains a description of the project, which I've basically given you verbally, but you can look at in more detail in the report itself. It also describes the existing characteristics of the transportation system, both the roadways that are within the area and the intersections that are included in the study area. A traffic safety analysis can be included, as was done for this particular analysis, and it was done in 3 different ways, one for the county and 2 different analysis for the DOT intersections. If there was public input, that is included, but what I want to spend the most time going over with you today is the level of service analysis, which is the heart and soul of the traffic impact analysis. This level of service analysis allows for conclusions and recommendations to be reached that the agencies can then use to write conditions of approval. The intersections that are included in this traffic impact analysis are shown in green and in yellow on this diagram. The traffic impact analysis was broken into 3 parts. The first was a PM peak hour analysis of the intersections in the study area. A second was the AM peak hour analysis, and that was done for the intersections with the star. That analysis was included in the technical appendix, and there was no additional mitigation measures needed beyond what was found during the PM peak hour analysis. A third analysis was the 2 intersections that serve the Camelot subdivision, and those were Highway 2 and Winchester, and Hastings and Guinevere. The analysis of those 2 intersections was included in the technical appendix because there was no mitigation measures needed. So the PM peak hour analysis that was included in the body of the report includes the intersections where there could have or there actually was determined to be level of service issues. The first part of doing a traffic impact analysis is determining what the existing traffic volumes are. Under ordinary circumstances, that's a fairly easy thing to do, but because of the COVID pandemic, historical counts had to be used. Some of these were as old as 2017 at Wall and Country Homes. Some were taken in 2018 and some were taken in 2019. A few were taken in early 2021 after traffic volumes had stabilized. These traffic volumes, as necessary, were factored up to anticipate what had happened between 2019 and the existing conditions. When we do this level of service analysis, we start with these existing traffic volumes and we run what are called level of service analysis to determine how the existing transportation system is functioning. From that, we add on traffic from other known sources to determine how the transportation system will function in the future without the Mead Works project. And lastly, we add the traffic from the Mead Works project and see how the transportation system is functioning. We do that by grading the intersections, and we have one system for the unsignalized intersections, including two-way stop control and roundabout intersections. And all the reviewing agencies agree that level of service A through E are acceptable levels of service for unsignalized intersections. And they all agree that if an intersection is functioning at level of service F, mitigation will be required. This analysis scenario also applies to all-way stop controlled intersections, but we did not have any of those in this particular TIA. For signalized intersections, the criteria is a little bit different. All the agencies agree that A through D are acceptable levels of service, and they all agree that if an intersection is functioning at level of service F, mitigation measures are required. As far as level of service E is concerned, both Spokane County and the Washington State Department of Transportation agrees that an signalized intersection would require mitigation if it functions at E. The city of Spokane does allow some intersections to function at level of service E, and one of those is the intersection of Highway 2 and Hawthorne. Getting back to the existing traffic volumes I showed you early, we used those traffic volumes to develop this table that shows the level of service under the existing condition. And I'd like to first of all bring to your attention this column that shows the traffic control at each of the intersections that lets you know which level of service criteria we're going to be looking at. And secondly, I'd like to bring to your attention two intersections. One is the intersection of US 2 and Farwell. We can see that it's a signalized intersection working at level of service D, which is an acceptable situation, but the level of service D becomes level of service E once the delay reaches 55 seconds. And we can see that we're getting pretty close to that level. Towards the bottom of the table, we see that the intersection of Wall and Country Homes Boulevard is shown to be functioning at level of service E. I don't think anyone who goes through there, especially in the afternoon, has any doubt that this is the case. The Spokane County is aware of this situation and has put a project on their books to address this situation. And their project is to remove the raised median on Country Homes Boulevard and replace that with left turn lanes. That has a cascading effect of needing longer signal arms and an increased number of turning phases, and the existing traffic signal controller will not be able to accommodate all of that and will need to be replaced. There are probably other miscellaneous items that are going to need to be replaced as well. This is outlined in more detail in the county's 6-year plan in the 2025 year improvement projects where it's listed as number 8. The sponsor of Mead Works wants the transportation system in the area to function at good levels of service to serve the residents there, and has offered to pay a proportionate share of that improvement. They did propose to pay for the whole improvement, and the county is not able to do that, but they did welcome the payment of a proportionate share. That concludes the findings of the existing level of service analysis. So let's look at what's going to happen in the future. So in addition to the existing traffic volumes, there will be ambient increases in traffic as a general rule. And there will also be traffic added to the system from 3 known projects. The Dakota Apartments, which is located north of Hastings Road on Dakota. The Spring Air Preliminary Plat, which is located on the east side of the North Spokane Corridor, south of Farwell Road, and also the new Creekside Elementary School in Mead and the Union Stadium School project in Mead. Now, you might say, why are those included? They're already in operation, but they were not in operation when the traffic volumes were collected, and therefore they have vested rights to the capacity on the road. When we add the traffic from those known sources to the existing traffic volumes, we come up with a new table that shows how the level of service are going to fall out in the future. And we see that, as expected, the intersection of US 2 and Farwell falls from an acceptable level of D to an unacceptable level of E, which means that mitigation is required. There are 3 options for mitigation measures that were looked at, any one of which will address the unacceptable levels of service and allow the intersection to again function within acceptable levels. The first one examined is a second northbound left turn lane. That would be a very good improvement, but it would be quite costly and disruptive to construct. A second option is to construct a dedicated eastbound right turn lane. That could be constructed much more easily and does not require additional right-of-way because the DOT owns the property next to that. And the third is to put in a dedicated westbound right turn lane. That wouldn't do as much good. It probably wouldn't address the poor levels of service for as long a period of time. And so based on all that criteria, the new eastbound right turn lane was the chosen option. Again, this turn lane is needed even if Mead Works does not move forward, but the sponsor of Mead Works does want the transportation system to work well for the residents that will locate here, and so they have offered to pay for this in total. The diagram that you see in front of you is conceptual only, and there will be construction plans developed and submitted and approved by the DOT before this is actually put in place. So that concludes the analysis that looks at the future conditions without the traffic from Mead Works. The next part of a TIA is determine how much traffic will be generated by the project itself. This is shown in 2 portions. The upper table shows the residential portion that will be owned by Greenstone. They are planning 1,440 units of residential property, and then the portions of the site that is retained by Kaiser is planned for 1,195,000 square feet of a variety of land uses, and you can look in the TIA for more information about what was included in those numbers. When we add the traffic from those land uses onto the existing transportation system, we develop a third level of service table, and we see here that there are 2 intersections that are shown to function at level of service E. The one towards the bottom is US 2 and Hawthorne, which, as I mentioned previously, is controlled by the city of Spokane and is allowed to function at level of service E, even though it's a signalized intersection. The other intersection that's shown to be functioning at E is the intersection of US 2 in Pittsburgh, which is the roundabout next to the Costco store. And that roundabout was constructed in a way that capacity could easily be added to it, because there are a couple of lanes that are just curbed off right now, and those could easily be added to the transportation system and increase the capacity on the road. The analysis software that was used for this study does not have a good way to add in a second left turn lane, as is shown from Pittsburgh going around to the south on Highway 2. And because of that, it shows its level of service E, but that additional lane is actually going to add quite a bit more capacity than that, and so the level of service is likely to be quite a bit higher than level of service E. The DOT does not want these lanes to be put in right away, and so we're not exactly clear when these improvements will be put into place, but they are available at any time that the DOT decides that they need to be put in. And this will be funded by the developer of Mead Works. All of the mitigation measures that I've described to date, other than this one, because the DOT is not ready for this to go in, will be done by the end of 2026. In addition to these off-site improvements, within the site itself, a new arterial is being constructed that will support Highway 2 and allow the traffic going on and off this site to access the North Spokane corridor, especially without having to use Highway 2. If there is a need to phase this new arterial, the first phase will start at the northern end at Farwell and will tie in to the street behind the Costco store. The second phase, if necessary, will go from Pittsburgh to the southern roundabout within the site, which will then allow the second access point to Highway 2 to be developed, and followed lastly by the portion tying into Hawthorne Road and allowing for the fourth access point to the site. In addition to this new arterial, and in keeping with Greenstone's general way of doing things, a sidewalk will be added to the north side of Hawthorne Road from this location west to Nevada Street. Altogether, all of these mitigation measures will cost more than $15 million, so the traffic issues on this site are significant. This concludes our presentation. Thank you.